Hi everyone, Queeveen here from the comfort of my kitchen. In today's video, we are going backwards in time. We are going to go into the past instead of going into the future. We're going all the way back to the 1800s, and not those ones, but these ones. So we're going back to the year 1800 BCE. So not back to the 1800s that have just passed, but to the 1800 years before year one or year zero, depending on how you're counting it. Usually year one. One thing that I particularly like about Stellarium, not only does it allow you to look into the past, but you may notice no light pollution. Of course, there wasn't any light pollution back in the 1800s BCE. There wasn't certainly not the level of light pollution that we'd expect in the modern day. But taking a look at the sky here, we're still taking a look at the sky for, well, we've moved back to early October. We'll move forward to later October. And there are some differences. For example, we can see that Saturn is there very close to Taurus. So if we take a click on Saturn here, we'll see it is illuminated 100%, so it is around opposition again, which is an interesting coincidence. But you should notice, yep, Uranus is no longer there next to the Pleiades as we're seeing it currently. If we take a slightly closer look at morning time, yeah, there's Mercury. We're definitely not seeing Mercury this October in the morning. If you're closer to the equator, you might see it in the evening. There's Mars, very prominent in the year 1800 BCE, not very at the moment. We can see Venus and Jupiter there setting with the sun rather than coming up ahead of sunrise as we're seeing them at the moment. So there are definitely differences. We've definitely traveled very far into the past, but there are a lot of similarities. We can very clearly see the shape of the Hyades there, the face of the bull Taurus. We can clearly see Orion there. The stars are still in the same relative positions, even though we've traveled, it's almost 4,000 years all told, 3,000 and a bit years into the past. We can still see the plough pointing up at the North Star. In fact, if we move through time a little bit more quickly here, I'll get rid of the atmosphere just so the sun rising doesn't ruin things for us. But you might notice that the North Star isn't quite staying exactly in one place. It's not exactly above the North Pole as it was or as it will be in our modern day. So we can see that the sky isn't quite rotating around the North Star, what we would now call the pole star. So there are differences in the positions of the stars, not so much relative to each other, but relative to the Earth. If we turn back around here, well, it's not really going to be visible at this time of the year. At least I don't think so. We'll bring ourselves up to sunrise. We can see where the sun is there. If we move the sun out of the way, we'll come all the way back into winter time. Or we'll come all the way back to summertime when the glow of the Milky Way should be pretty much at its highest in the middle of the night. And we'll just see, here we go. So we've got Sagittarius and all of Scorpius above the horizon. And I regularly complain that this isn't something we can normally do from here in Ireland, certainly not in the modern day. And although we have travelled very far into the past, we are still in the same geographical location, just not the same temporal location. Let's see if we can watch it drop under the horizon by maybe getting rid of that negative. There we go. Already a huge difference. We'll move through time a little bit just to get things above the horizon. And as you can see, nowhere near as high above the horizon as they are in the negative 1800s. And of course, things have shifted around a little bit here. There are some other little changes going on. Of course, calendars were changed, various things were changed. But what we're noticing here with Sagittarius and Scorpius changing positions and with the North Star no longer really being the pole star, these are changes due to Earth's precession, the wobble of our axial tilt. We do have an axial tilt, but it does wobble a little bit as well. So we'll bring back on the atmosphere and we'll come all the way back a little bit closer to the date that we have in the modern day. That will put the sun in front of Sagittarius and Scorpius, but it should give me an opportunity, I will leave the moon up there, it should give me an opportunity to demonstrate something that I have mentioned in the past. So let's adjust our view here and we'll get rid of the atmosphere again. Here we go. If I bring up the constellations, these are the modern constellations. These are the constellations as they're accepted by the International Astronomical Union, the ones that we use in the modern day. And I have pointed out before that in the constellations of Libra and Scorpius, the names of the stars tell a slightly different story to the positions of the pictures that we have here. So Antares, of course, the Greek name, various other names here in Latin and in Arabic, calling it the heart of the scorpion, Cor Scorpii, Calb ala Crab. These mean the heart of the scorpion or the heart of the crab or the lobster, depending on how the word gets interpreted. If we take a closer look at some of these stars, Brachium means arm, Zubin Akrabi, the arm of the crab, and we can see something similar over here with these Arabic names. These are related to not the balance of Libra, but the claws of the scorpion. Now, of course, we're looking way back here in the minus 1800s. Depending on the version of the chronology that you prefer, we are looking back in Babylonian times, and these constellations that we use in Western astronomy, even though they've changed over the centuries, they do trace their heritage back to the Babylonians, and they should be up here. So these constellations are preserved in stellarium, so these are from drawings. The information being used here comes from a particular clay tablet, MUL.APIN, which is pretty much the plough, the star plough, even though the plough that this text is talking about is very different from the plough that we use today. It's a different part of the sky. It's more related to the path of the ecliptic. So we can see there's various asterisms here, and here we go. So Epinu, a plough related to a particular god, is in the constellation of Cassiopeia, the modern position of Cassiopeia. But even though there are various changes, there are definitely some similarities, some commonalities, and we can see some right here already. There's a scorpion and there is a balance. There is Scorpius and Libra, but they are, and I hope that's visible, in different positions. So if we take a closer look here, these stars would be considered the front arm of Scorpius in the modern day, and I think, yeah, they're not getting their modern cultural names, they're only getting designations because only a few of these stars would have their names in Babylonian or Akkadian recorded. So the kingdom of Babylon was part of the Akkadian or Sumer-Akkadian region of the Middle East. This cuneiform is Akkadian cuneiform. Other cuneiform wrote Sumerian, so same writing style being used for different languages. That's not too unfamiliar, I hope. But just while we're jumping around here, we'll bring this over to the side so that we can still see it. Here's the Babylonian positions of Scorpius and Libra. If we come down to the modern constellations, here we go. I hope you could see that jump. So this whole region of the sky around the sun was considered part of the scorpion. This was just the front of the scorpion's head with its claws extending around the sun. Whereas today, Libra's been sort of shifted back into that position. Even if we compare with the Greek constellations, and we've got a few of them here, we're going to go with the Almagest. That doesn't have pictures, that's okay. Here we go, very different pictures, but you should be able to see that's the scorpion. I know it doesn't look like a very good drawing of a scorpion, but it's got a stinger, it's got claws, and up there is the balance past the sun. So the positions of these constellations have changed, not just coming into the modern day, but going from the ancient Babylonian or Akkadian constellations into the Greek constellations, and then eventually into the Roman constellations, and then the modern constellations that we use. You should notice, I hope you notice, that there are a lot of other cultures here. Though the Babylonian and Greek and Roman constellations all seem to share a common thread with various similarities in the constellations that they use, a lot of these other groups are completely different and they are essentially separate. They're not necessarily influenced by, and they haven't necessarily influenced the constellations that we use in Western astronomy, like the ones that we can, well, you might recognize a couple of them here. This is a big topic, so I will absolutely come back to it, but I'm glad I could show a little bit of these images and a little bit of the, well, how ancient these are. Now, we can see this tablet was written or based on observational data around the minus 13 and 1100s, not the minus 1800s. I've gone all the way back to around the beginning of Babylonia, before Hammurabi. Again, it depends on the chronology, and that is something we may get into in another video. If you enjoyed this video looking into the past and talking about the past rather than looking into the future, then please do let me know. Let me know if this is something you'd like to see more of, if you'd like this topic explored more, or if you'd like me to look at other ancient times. If you enjoyed this video, please do like it. If you like this kind of content, then please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you'd like to read some of this information, you can do that on my website, queeveenscontent.ie. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you back here next time.